Hello everyone, I'm Al-Vatar and today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the base M3 MacBook Pro with 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, the reasons why I bought it, why I chose it over the MacBook Air models and other Pro models with the M1 Pro, M2 Pro and M3 Pro chipset. A lot of YouTubers out there telling us that we don't have to buy this base M3 MacBook Pro 13-inch model with 8 gigs of RAM because it isn't enough for your workflow maybe, but I have a different point of view and I think maybe this base model is the best value for the price, and today I'm going to explain you why do I think so. The first reason I chose it because my previous MacBook Pro 13-inch model from 2016 unfortunately died. And I felt bad about it because I liked almost everything about it. It had perfect size and weight, great IPS screen with true colors, great sound quality, gorgeous design, but at some point the battery died and it started to slow down and there wasn't enough memory to download and install new software updates, so I couldn't use it anymore. And I found this new M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model maybe the best replacement for my old one. They both have the same size and weight, but the screen size on the newer one is a bit bigger and it's more comfortable to use. Both have 8 gigs of RAM, but the newer model uses new unified type of memory and it's the way faster. Also, both have cooling system with one fan, both have a webcam. However, the M3 model uses Full HD resolution. Both came out with the base model chipset of the lineup, but the new M3 chip is 10 times faster and it has more cores and coders to encode video while editing. So yeah, I think the base M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model is the best choice to replace my old Intel-based MacBook. The second reason I chose this M3 MacBook Pro because I think 14 inches is the perfect screen size. Having a 13 inches MacBook Pro from 2016, I always thought it would be great to have an extra 1 inch because fonts were too small and sometimes I couldn't place everything I needed on my screen while editing videos, for example. But 16 inches MacBook Pro is too heavy and big for me personally. I don't like that it weighs 500 grams more, and I like the portability of this 14-inch model, and also having it allows me to use my suitcase from my old 13-inch model and I don't have to spend an extra $100 to buy a new one. What do you think makes you professional? Right, enough ports on your laptop. And I think a lot of pro people out there who need ports even more than a powerful chip to connect devices and transfer data. For me personally, ports are vital. I regularly use them to connect my MacBook to other devices. I edit videos using an external SSD drive. When I'm working on my sound production, I connect my headphones, audio recorder and my MIDI key. To share my presentation when I'm on the stage, I use HDMI port. Sometimes I connect my camera to launch a good quality streams on YouTube or via Zoom. Sometimes even many devices are connected to my MacBook whilst I'm working and charging it, so ports are vital, and if you don't have enough ports you have to buy some connectors that aren't cheap and you have to spend an extra $100 for them, so I don't like it. Lack of ports, that's the reason why I chose this base M3 MacBook Pro model over the Air models and MacBook Pro models from 2020 because they also don't have enough ports for my workflow. Even a powerful M3 chip inside the MacBook Air doesn't produce as much power as it can because of the lack of cooling system. I guess you heard of it that if you push your MacBook Air to its limits, it starts overheating and it has to reduce the power of the chip to keep normal temperature. It's called thermal throttling. To deal with it, Apple's engineers put a cooling system with one fan inside this M3 MacBook Pro, and that's the reason why I chose it over the MacBook Air model. because having a cooling system makes my device more powerful even with the same chip. And I think having that cooling system is vital, especially for tasks like video editing, music production, maybe web design and multitasking. If you're working on video editing for 8 hours straight, after 20 minutes, if you don't have a cooling system, it starts overheating and reduces the power of the chip. But having that cooling system inside your device makes it more reliable throughout the day and more powerful, even with the same chip. So that's the reason why I chose the base M3 MacBook Pro model, because it has a cooling system. And I think a lack of cooling system is even worse than a lack of ports. Now I'm going to explain you why do I think that having a MacBook Pro with the base M3 chip is maybe a better decision than having a MacBook Pro with M1 Pro, M2 Pro or M3 Pro series chipset inside. I think the base M3 chip is still powerful enough to deal with almost any task you need, but it uses less power, so we don't have to overthink about the battery condition. Based on my experience, I could say that this device, its standby can be up to 22 hours. I charge it maybe twice a week. Yes, I don't work full-time every day, but it's incredible. What does it mean for me personally and why it's so important to me? When I'm buying a new MacBook, I just want to be able to use it for as long as I can. And the battery condition might be a reason to repair it after a few years, maybe a reason to replace this device with the new one. So having a less powerful chip, I think it could serve me longer, maybe. Right now, after 6 months of using my base M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model, I see that the battery capacity is still at 99% and the cycle count is just 65. So let's do the math. The maximum cycle count for this device is 1000, and I think it could serve me for almost 8 years before the battery dies. And I think battery dies even faster with the M Pro series chipset inside. So I think it's a good combo having a less powerful chip compared to other MacBook Pro models and more battery capacity compared to other MacBook Air models. When I thought about buying a new MacBook, I had some doubts about the chip. Should I buy a model with the base M3, or it should be the M1 Pro or M2 Pro or maybe even the M3 Pro chip inside. But later I figured that it doesn't matter, because whatever I buy, if I'm going to replace my old Intel-based MacBook Pro from 2016, it will be 10 times faster. It seemed like the base M3 chip was powerful enough for my workflow, that's why I chose it. However, I have created a comparison table for all the M series chips to find out the difference in numbers of efficiency and performance cores, GPU cores and transistors. Looking at the specs, it seems like the base M3 chip is close enough to the M1 Pro chip, but it's newer and maybe Apple will support it longer. Next, I question myself about the RAM. Is 8 gigs of RAM enough for my workflow, or do I need more? And that was the most confusing question to consider about, because you couldn't upgrade it later. New MacBooks support up to 96 gigs of RAM, and it seems like 8 gigs is too little, but inside my old MacBook Pro from 2016 there was also 8 gigs of RAM. But here's the thing, new MacBooks, they use new type of RAM, it's called unified memory, and it's the way faster because it's physically built into the chip. Searching for the information that might help me to make a better decision about the RAM, I found out some reasons why I decided that 8 gigs will be just fine for myself, for my workflow. And the first is that Apple says 8 gigs of new unified memory works as well as 16 gigs of traditional RAM inside your Intel-based laptop. Also, all the Apple devices are produced to serve you at least for 5 years, and I thought if they sold so many of them with 8 gigs of RAM, maybe they should work well. And the third idea is that I think 16 gigs of RAM and more need individuals who work on hard multitasking. For example, if you're editing complex 8K videos, and at the same time you're rendering a complex 3D project maybe. So that's the case where you should go for 16 gigs or even more. But for simple multitasking, where you're taking notes, browsing and editing simple Full HD videos, I think 8 gigs of RAM is just fine. Finally, about the storage, is 512 gigs enough for your data, or do you need more? For me personally, it's more than enough, because I don't keep my data on my laptop. I use for that external drives and cloud drives. After all being installed and after 6 months of using my MacBook, I could say that it's still 350 gigs of free space. And the question is not, is there enough space for you? The question is, how do you manage it? And I prefer to use external hard drives and cloud drives to keep my data. Talking about the storage, I have to say that it's the way faster than it was on my previous MacBook Pro. Speed on my previous model was up to 500 megabytes per second, but here it's up to 3000 megabytes per second. So they made a huge upgrade. Overall, I could say when I decided to buy this base M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model 2023 with 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, I made just the same decision as I did 8 years before when I decided to buy the base MacBook Pro 13-inch model with 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage. Because I think that's just the same work machine, but it's newer, faster and more powerful. Before I told you about the downsides of this MacBook Pro and my experience of using it and who is it for, I want to tell you about the last reason why I decided to choose this base M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model over the more expensive and more powerful MacBook Pro models with M Pro series chipsets inside. And the reason is that when I thought about the MacBook, I didn't think about the device itself. I thought about devices I needed for my workflow. So having this MacBook, what I'm going to do with that? I want to be able to create videos, edit them and upload on my YouTube channel. I want to be able to create some music and other types of content. And what devices do I need for that? Maybe I need some camera, yeah, so let's put it here. Maybe I need some MIDI key. So instead of spending more money for more powerful computer, I decided to buy something just enough powerful for myself and save some money and keep it to buy the MIDI key that came with the light version of Ableton, which is software for music production. So I can use it even years after this MacBook will die. Yeah. So my advice is save your money, buy the base model, and buy another equipment that you need for your workflow. So let's talk about the downsides I've noticed after 6 months of using my base M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model. And the first one is that sometimes 8 gigs of RAM isn't enough, and that's true. When I have created 5 desktops and was using my MacBook for a few weeks without restarting it, it would freeze. But to be fair, that happened only when I was working at the same time with 20 tabs in Safari, 20 tabs in Google Chrome, whilst I was editing videos in DaVinci Resolve and taking notes. So if you're going to use more than that, I think 8 gigs of RAM isn't for you, but it's totally fine for me. The second issue is it feels cheap compared to my old MacBook Pro 2016. It's hard to see the difference, but it feels like my old MacBook is more solid. Maybe it's because Apple uses new recycling materials for their new devices. The display, the body, the keyboard itself, it feels cheaper compared to my older model where everything was built like a tank. It's not a big deal, I get used to it after a few weeks, but I remember the feeling when I first time noticed that. And the third downside is about the display. I don't know why, but for my eyes personally, it seems like the IPS display on my older MacBook Pro model looks better. The new Apple display, it looks good, it has better resolution, but it feels cheap. I see some shadows in the corners and I notice delay while switching between desktops. Somebody can see the difference, but I see it and it feels strange. So who is that base M3 MacBook Pro for? I think if you're going to spend 80% of your time on simple tasks like watching movies, browsing the web, taking notes, video calls, transferring data and working with documents, and if you're going to spend 20% of your time on tasks like video editing, design and coding, music production, color correction, this base M3 MacBook Pro will be perfect for you. And I think it's maybe the most life and work balanced device. Guys like me, freelancers, self-employed people, content creators would like to use it. Also, I wouldn't recommend it for guys whose job is to work from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. and every single day push their device to its limits. And if you're going to render 8K videos every single day, 8 hours straight, and if you're going to render complex 3D projects every single day, I think it's not for you. Maybe you should take a look at more powerful MacBook Pro models with M Pro series chipsets inside. Today we covered the topic about my base M3 MacBook Pro 14-inch model and the reasons why I chose it over the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro models. I hope you enjoyed the video and that was useful for you to watch. So please subscribe for my YouTube channel, push the like button and write your questions down below under this video. Also, I want to ask you, please share this video with your colleagues and friends. I hope if you like it, you'll do that, because my goal right now is to achieve 1000 subscribers and it's really important to me, and I will be thankful for you if you will support my channel and my goals. See you in the next video. Bye.